This is one of my favorite tropes. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing another romance book recommendations video specifically for the trope of Grumpy versus Miss Sunshine. It's how I know it to be. It's how I would describe it when we have a hero or heroine who is completely different from the opposite person that they fall in love with. We usually have a person who is very quiet, very reserved, grumpy, sarcastic maybe, and then we have a heroine who is very bubbly, very vibrant, the life of the party, and extrovert, and somehow they meet and they end up falling in love. And this trope is one of my favorites because I wouldn't say that I am the happy, vibrant, extroverted person that you would think when you see it at a party. Yes, I'm extroverted. Yes, I like to chat with people. Yes, I'm wearing a dress that looks kind of like something a character would wear if they were happy all the time. But deep down, I am pretty much a grumpy character. I have a very dark sense of humor. I'm very sarcastic to the point that people actually think that I don't like them from the comments that I make. And I also like to just not say much because if I say something, it's going to sound judgmental. So sometimes I'm a little bit quiet. I also really like this trope because of the interactions between our Grumpy and our Miss Sunshine character. They're usually like an enemies to lovers romance element to it, where our hero or heroine who is grumpy really dislikes the person who is so vibrant and so extroverted all the time, simply because they don't mesh well and they're not on like the same wavelength in terms of opinions on things. And the teasing and the banter is usually what gets me and what makes me bump these books to a higher rating. It also makes me want to gravitate towards these books on my TBR quicker than the rest. I think when we think about Grumpy and the Sunshine trope, we obviously gravitate towards the one book that a lot of people talk about here on BookTube and on Bookstagram, which is known as Beach Read by Emily Henry. We have our two characters who write novels, but they are two genres that are complete opposites. Our heroine loves to write romance stories, loves to write about characters falling in love, loves to write about characters kind of going through their emotions, figuring out what they want in life, and being triumphant and having a happily ever after at the end of her novel, and having the happily ever after guarantee of a romance novel as well. But then we have our hero. He is kind of a fiction writer that writes a lot of darker stories that involve a lot of crime and investigation, and there is no really a happy ending in sight. Sometimes there are no happy endings, and sometimes the characters are just in their emotions, and it's very raw and very realistic. Now, these two people unfortunately find themselves stuck together when they have two cottages or cabins right next to each other during their summer space, and both of them have kind of their own issues that they have to deal with. Both of them kind of are stumped in with a writer's block, so they both challenge each other to write each other's genres in the next novel that they're writing, simply because they think poorly of each other's genres that they write. So she's out here to prove that romance novels are great, and now he's here to prove that romance novels sometimes need a little bit more realistic events to happen to it so that it can be of something more of substance. There's always so much witty banter between these characters, and I remember just laughing and smiling all the way through from page 1 to the last page. So if you guys haven't picked up Beach Read yet, definitely pick this one up. Emily Henry has actually written a new novel called People We Meet on Vacation that was released in May of this year, and a lot of people have also read it already, but also a lot of people haven't. But People We Meet on Vacation follows two characters that are eerily similar to Beach Read. Our two characters are Grumpy and Miss Sunshine once again. They are best friends with each other, so it's not an enemies to lovers romance, it's a friends to lovers romance. And our hero is very reserved, he's quiet, he's bookish, he likes to be by himself, but then he finds himself being stuck with our main female heroine, and they start an unlikely friendship where they both actually go on vacation with each other every single year, and they have fun exploring different sides of themselves and to pretend that they are different people on vacation. And they end up having feelings for each other, and they don't know what to do with it. And now this is the story of what happens when you have a very strong friendship, it breaks down for a reason that we don't know yet, and then now they're trying to make amends for it and try to repair back their friendship and hopefully have something more. So I really like this one too as well. This one didn't include as much witty banter as you would think from Beach Read. but I really enjoyed our hero, who was very dry and very sarcastic most of the times. He definitely made my night when he was like having particular opinions about a lot of certain things, and our heroine was just so tired of his negativity, but I was all for it. Now moving on to some books that you may not have heard of yet. This one is called This Much Is True by Talia Louise, and this is a new to me author. This is an indie published romance involving our hero who has been framed and has actually been put into jail, and now he's torn away from his daughter and he is livid. He's so angry at the judicial system for putting him behind bars when he hasn't committed a crime and a proper investigation wasn't taking place and he was framed. So when he is finally released, all he wants to do is go back to his daughter and take her away from her evil mom and obviously his ex. And so he has to travel this grand distance in order to get to the daughter. So he decides to actually buy a used car off of our main female heroine. And what he doesn't expect is that our main female heroine is still in the backseat of the car when he starts driving down the highway. And he soon realizes that she has no money, she has no proper clothing, and that he is the only one that she can depend on if she wants to stay safe. And this is a grand road trip romance involving a very grumpy character versus a Miss Sunshine go lucky character who kind of lives life whimsically. She doesn't really have a set career path. She doesn't really have family to tie her down. She's just there with vibes only. She has no plans whatsoever. She's not scared of him, but she knows that she's insanely attracted to him. And also his brother is actually in the car too as well. But all three of them somehow find a way to build a long-lasting friendship, and our main hero and our heroine actually finds ways to fall in love with each other even though there is a third wheel. Moving on to another romance that I don't feel like a lot of people talk about is actually a traditionally published romance from a Canadian author known as Jenny Holiday. If you follow me on Instagram, you would know that I love Jenny Holiday. I love her books. I love her writing. I love her personality. I think Jenny's really funny too as well. So definitely go check her out on Twitter and also on Instagram. And she wrote this romance for Forever Romance that I really liked. And it's called One and Only. And it actually takes place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is kind of where I'm from. So I was really excited to see a lot of Canadian references in this story. So One and Only is one book in her Bridesmaids Behaving Badly series, which involves three characters who have weddings that they have to attend to or have weddings of their own that they have to plan, and they fall in love. So our main female heroine, I think, is a YA fantasy author. She's like kind of like middle grade YA, like younger readers, and she is doing really well for herself, but her job is writing, so she becomes kind of an introvert at times. And she's also a big nerd in the sense that she loves Zelda and she loves like her childhood television shows so much that she actually does cosplay. So she's completely different from our hero, who is a grumpy bad boy and who just so happens to be the younger brother of the groom. And our main female heroine is best friends with the bride, and the bride actually tells our main female heroine like, hey, is it okay if you babysit my fiance's younger brother, because I feel like his reputation will precede him and that he will cause a lot of trouble in the wedding and cause me a lot of headache. So off the bat, she has a horrible impression of the younger brother, who is our hero, and thinks that he is going to be very reckless and very different from her personality, which is very safe and that likes to keep to herself and likes to just write books in the dark. So our two characters are opposites attract. We have a heroine who is not particularly like Miss Sunshine, but she is more on the quiet side. And then our hero is the resident bad boy that everybody doesn't really trust because he had a lot of things happen to him in the past and he doesn't have a stable job. So people kind of have a really bad opinion of him. He's a black sheep in the family. And now these two characters are stuck together during this whole wedding journey, and they are going on to different excursions in Toronto. They're exploring different parts of the city. They are learning more about each other and realizing that their reputation is wrong and that they thought poorly of each other and there is more to it. And I absolutely adore this one. I love a black sheep character, and definitely there was a strong redemption arc in this one too as well. So this video wouldn't be complete if we didn't include Act Your Age Eve Brown by Talia Hilbert. Now this one involves our female heroine who has two sisters who are brilliant. So we have a sister who is really good at becoming a professor and is teaching, and then we have another heroine who is a research person, I believe, and they are very academics and they have very successful careers, and now they both have really loving relationships. So Eve is different from her sisters in the sense that she doesn't have a stable career and she doesn't know what she actually wants to do for the rest of her life, and because of her family pressures and because of her parents kind of always like looking down at her, she feels even more pressure to even try out things that she really likes. But what happens is that our main female heroine, Eve, finds herself at a loss and she doesn't want to run back to her parents for help. So she decides to interview for a position as a chef for a bed and breakfast in town. And our hero just so happens to own that bed and breakfast. Our hero doesn't like Eve at first because she is completely different from him. She's on a little bit of a wild side, I guess, and he doesn't appreciate that in employees, and she feels like she's a little bit too zany. So our hero sends her off, but then realizes that nobody else can fulfill the spot except for Eve. So he hires her anyways. And then through their close working relationship, they get to know each other more, and suddenly she's invading his space and also invading her heart, and they end up liking each other and falling in love. But they both have their own pains and struggles that they have to get through. Now moving back to books that you probably never heard about before. This one's called Don't Play with Odin by Cynthia Eden, and I love Cynthia Eden's work after reading No Escape from War, which is book 1 in the series. Now in No Escape from War, I was actually introduced to a character named Odin, and as soon as he graced the pages of my Kindle when I was reading it, I knew I needed Odin's novel right away, because Odin is described to be as a very stoic character that doesn't say much because he's scared of putting his foot in his mouth and kind of making the situation worse with his words and with his comments. And when he does speak, yeah, it does. He's very sarcastic, he's very dry, and he's very protective of the people that he calls his friends in his life. And he'll put everything on the line to make sure that they're safe at the end of the day. And in Don't Play with Odin, he's actually a private investigator with his friend War from the first book. And he thinks that his first client is a little bit crazy simply because his client is a crime podcast enthusiast, loves crime documentaries, loves reading about cold cases, and then suddenly she is coming into his office and telling him that her next door neighbor might be a serial killer, and she needs to hire Odin so that they can figure out if the serial killer is actually next door. And Odin kind of puts her off at first and thinks that she's just loco, but then he starts to realize that the evidence is too strong to ignore and that she might actually be in danger, and Odin has to kind of reel her back in this book, and Odin has to come and protect her. And I really enjoyed this one because our main female heroine is definitely a little bit eccentric. She's so enthusiastic about solving crimes, and he is the opposite of that. He likes to solve crimes, but he doesn't visibly show it. He thinks more on his feet and he thinks more with his brain and not on the emotional side, such as our main female heroine may be. So I really like the dynamic duo of this couple, and I highly recommend you to check this one out. So the last book that I have for this video is actually an Audible only exclusive audiobook. This one's called The Standin and it's by Lily Chu, and basically our main female heroine is working a job because she needs to have money to pay for her mother's assisted care, and she hates the job but the money is good, so she continues chugging along until one day they let her go and she realizes that she is desperate for money. And then when she's walking on the street, somebody pulls her aside and tells her to come into a car, and that's when she realizes that the very famous Chinese actress is sitting in front of her, and they say that they look eerily alike and that they can be twins. So the actress actually hires her to be her doppelganger because the actress really needs to have time and relaxation and to be off the radar, but she also needs to be out in public to promote their new movie and to kind of like hype up everything that she does. So they pay her a lump sum of money for her to pretend to be her for a specific time frame. And then along the way, our heroine, who is very different from the poised and the perfect Chinese actress, she has to learn to not be the self that she is, which is the very loud, eccentric, possibly rude heroine that she is. And also during this publicity stunt, she is being thrown together with our hero, who is a very famous Chinese actor, and he's known to be very cool and very suave and very sophisticated. He doesn't say much unless he needs to, and he is often quite sometimes rude. And this is like an enemies to lovers romance too as well. I really like the dynamics of this couple because you could tell that our heroine was really intimidated by our hero at first until she started humanizing him and realizing that just because he's a celebrity doesn't mean that he is different from her and that he has his own flaws too as well. And then our hero slowly falling in love with our heroine, who is different from all the other girls that he sees typically in Hollywood. So anyways, that is it for all my recommendations for the Grumpy and Sunshine trope. Hopefully you guys added some books to your TBR list, and let me know some of your favorite contemporary romances that follow this trope as well in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys again next time with a new video. Bye.